I have known Garrett Mitchell, the great Cleetus McFarland, for several years now. He helped us out with Car Trek 7 and, interacting in various events and things like that. And he's always asked if I could ever make it out to one of his cheap Crown Victoria races, which I thought sounded like a ton of fun and a great way to die. And I was like, no, because I had a lot of conflicts. But this year, he sent me the schedule early on and he said, do any of these work? And one did, the New England 900 in Stafford, Connecticut. I was super excited. This was going to be my first time in circle track racing, and it's about a half-mile loop, and I thought this should be a whole lot of fun. It's supposed to be nicely banked, whatever, let's do it. I've done a lot of track driving. We've rented a ton of tracks for different productions, doing different racing schools, manufacturer events, but I've never really done much wheel-to-wheel racing, and I didn't really know what to expect, either out of a cheap Crown Vic and whatever preparation they were going to do to it, out of this level of competition, because there's a bunch of NASCAR drivers showing up, a bunch of professional drifters and all this sort of stuff, and obviously Garrett himself is now a NASCAR pro, and so I knew it was going to be quite an adventure. And fortunately, Simpson was able to step in and make sure that my head stayed on it in one piece. And so on my way back recently from driving to Connecticut and back, a week before the event, I was able to pick up a nice brand new helmet, driving suit, gloves, shoes, all the things, Hans device, and it got very, very real, because apparently they do care if we make it out alive. I was excited about this, but even more than that, Travis Bell and his good friend Hot Dog Dan Dillon were very, very excited about that. It was going to be Dan's birthday that weekend, and so they were eager to volunteer to be my pit crew. Now, Travis has actually hosted a lot of Garrett's events as the retro disc jockey that he is. He would run the MC, help run the events for the live stream and all this stuff, and so he was very, very familiar and useful for me to help understand what I might expect in the competition. And so, generally the biggest rule that everyone told me was, don't crash early, because apparently everybody's crashing early. I actually looked up the statistics with the help of our good AI friends, and it said, yes, the matriculation is problematic. And so if you make it past the first 20 laps, your odds apparently went up a whole lot. And so I figured, well, I can keep up with anybody, I suppose. I'll just follow them and try not to crash, and how hard can it be? So there wasn't that much of a schedule of things that I had to do. There's no practice whatsoever. So I show up and they've got a row of Crown Vics. They had asked three things. How tall are you? How fat are you? And what color would you like your car to be? I said, I'm 6'5", a little over 200 pounds, and I'd like it to be green, if that's all right. I did not know. It's apparently unlucky to have a green race car, but I have since found that out. Spoiler alert. I show up, it looks great, gleaming, a little pink peeking out, because I guess they were going to have a mom's race that got canceled, and so mine is very, very green, and Travis has printed all the sponsor stickers. We've got the Ticket Clinic, Auto Tempest, Premier Financial, the Lemon Squad. Everybody is going on the Crown Vic looking brilliant. Of course, he also has some Celebrity Machines decals, his license plate company, which you should definitely check out at the link in the description below. But we were just excited. I mean, we didn't know what to expect, but the drivers' meeting was coming up soon after a bit of a meet and greet. Now, I have done some collaborative YouTube events where you got a bunch of content creators in one place, and the crowds can be really, really impressive. Certainly like Matt's Off-Road Games out in Hurricane, Utah. It brings a huge crowd to Sand Hollow, and I've enjoyed that several times. This was on another level. And I mean, I think there were at least 6,000 or 8,000 people in attendance. The line to shake Garrett's hand and get him to sign your arm to get it tattooed over later was, around the parking lot. It was unbelievable. And so I was just blown away at how devoted his fans were. I was also surprised they did know who I was. I mean, there's certainly obviously an overlap throughout the automotive content creator world, but I'm not ripping sleeves off. And so it was a different world. They're not looking for cheap Bugatti deals over there. But they were very excited that I was there. They were very surprised that I was there as well, as was I. Let's be honest, this is not my normal scene. But it's all coming together, and it is time for the drivers' meeting, where again we get very little information. I had fortunately gotten them to scoot the seat even further back, which they had put real good seats, real good cages. The cars seemed good. I have no idea, of course, how many times this car's been crashed horrifically before, but it's in one piece and it seemed ready to go. It started right up and whatever. The driver's meeting pretty much just says contact is welcome. The caution laps don't count, and we'll get back to that soon. But really just, be safe out there and don't do anything he wouldn't do. And I'm looking around like, does anybody know what in the world we're about to do? So again, there's no practice. You get one out lap and 3 qualifying laps. And so I went out with Zach Clapman from the Smoking Tire. Matt Farah was there as well. And we did it in 4 groups of 5. Regardless, I am kind of in the last group for no obvious reason. And we're out to qualify. And the results come back very quickly, and I qualify 14th. So right in the middle of the field. I am very pleased with myself because I didn't really understand where the breaking points are. exactly how you apex these double turns or any of this. And again, I didn't receive any instruction on how to do this, but I followed Speedy Cop around and he did a good job. But that qualified me ahead of Matt Farah, of Zach, of a lot of people. They were quite surprised when Garrett was reading off the qualification order. He goes, Ed Bolian? I said, yes, that's exactly, I like both that I am there and that it is exactly that surprising that I'm there. Of course, now I have a little bit more of an expectation going into the race, but I've also got a couple of hours to wait because between qualifying, which is when the live stream starts on Freedom Plus, and the actual race, they run two other events. An Ultima race and a van race. Now, the Ultima race is the most insane thing I've ever seen human beings do in person. They kind of shorten the track to just the infield, and they run 40 Ultimas with no rules or qualification, no safety requirements, they said they tech inspected, but I'm not sure how that's even possible, because I saw a man get out wearing a dirt bike helmet, Dickies coveralls, and a velvet airplane neck pillow as a safety device. And it was literally 40 laps of crashing. It was a linear demolition derby. All I'm seeing is shrapnel. Everything, I mean, no cars left with their bumpers on. No cars had lights left. Every wall is painted with Ultima everything. And it was the big Ultima energy that we see every day on 285 here in Atlanta, but I don't know where my next Uber car is going to come from if they go out there and destroy all of the Ultimas. And they did. There were a few left running at the end, but I mean, they're just pushing them off the track. Garrett had a brand new one. It didn't survive, but it was unreal. And we're just like one barrier away. And I'm like, this is sketch. But somebody won, I guess. And then they do the vans. And now the vans are shorter because the vans are falling apart faster. And it was like 10 laps, but they had to jump. So they added this jump that was only maybe 12 or 18 inches off the ground, but the length of the ramp was shorter than the wheelbases of the cars, which means that the nose is already going down when the rear is pushed up. And I mean, these things are flying and just nose diving and bouncing through. I mean, they probably jumped, 70, 80, 100 feet, some of them, without any control. And so I'm just witnessing this and I'm looking at, part of the track they're using for these shorter laps is the track I have to go drive on. And I'm like, how in the world are we not all going to lose the tires in the first lap? Because the other thing they had told us was that you have to watch tire wear. Everybody's freaked out about tire wear, that your front right tire is just going to explode. And I'm like, well, it doesn't have a tire pressure monitor. I'm just going to base it on how bumpy it is. It was already bumpy. So I don't know how I'm going to know this. But I really only had two goals. One, don't be the idiot that makes everybody crash. And two, don't kill Richard Childress. Because 80-year-old Richard Childress was racing with us. This was a big deal. It was his first time in a car in 40-odd years. And I'm not a car at all, but on a racetrack. And we certainly didn't want to be the reason that he was not going to make it home. And he's a racing legend. And obviously, Cleetus is kind of on his team. And so it's a big old thing. And I'm like, he's 80 years old. Like, what are we doing? So again, I don't make the rules, and you could not have paid me enough to accept the liability that the whole event seemed to carry. Amazingly, and maybe indicative of what's going to happen to me the next 40 years of my life, I qualified ahead of Mr. Richard Childress, and so I was going to be starting in front of him, as well as Dale Earnhardt's grandson was also behind me in the field. So we set off, and I don't really know how this is all going to work because, I know how the flags work, obviously, but they had given us these little radios that were on just little squishy orange earplugs to a little receiver. And so I could hear race control telling us, how many more laps we had under caution or whatever the case may be, or when we were going to start, because we did a bunch of laps before the start. And they had said that, you just leave the car in second on the 3-speed automatic, but they wanted us to put it in first for the bumper to bumper restarts. They wanted them down in first, and everybody's going to bump into each other, and then we're going to race to turn one. Okay, great. And so I do that. And I manage, and we're fine, and I stay in my position and really don't, do much passing or give up anything for about the first 20 laps. And everything is going quite well. Somebody did pit maneuver me at one point, and I saved it. I don't know how, to be honest with you. I just... and it stayed. So I noticed that the long wheelbase was certainly doing me some favors in allowing this thing to eventually navigate back straight. And but it was harrowing, and Travis was very scared. And so I got back on, and we were all fine. So it seemed like everybody had pretty much decided to abide by this don't crash in the first 20 laps thing. Because at lap 22, Mr. Downforce Danny forgot where the brake pedal was and decided it was in my rear bumper. And so he hit me so hard that the radio that was clipped to my belts flew out and tugs the headphones out of my helmet. So I can no longer hear anything. And, generally you can watch the flags, it's not that big of a deal. But we're under caution all the time. There were like 13 cautions in the 90-lap race. And the reason is that this is a show. It is not really a race. If we're not going to count laps under caution, and anybody who's a veteran obviously knew you dive back in the pits every time there's a caution and get whatever you need. I did not know this. I was told to make my tires last, and so I'm just circling around. And so I'm just waiting because the procedure is a little bit strange. Again, we're not counting these caution laps. We're just going round and round and, taking pictures. Everybody's having a good time, and I assume cheering in the stands or going to the bathroom. So we line back up, but then they have a choice cone, which I was not familiar with. So they put a cone out in the middle of turn 1, and you have to go high or low because they're going to run too wide at the restart, and they want you to pick. And so that shuffles the order up because you don't know if, I'm counting because I'm, in the middle of the field, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. So if I see 6 go one way, I try to go the other way. But I was a lot more comfortable on the high side because, it felt like everybody kept drifting out and it gave you a little bit of room to escape. And other people were certainly diving in. Staying in your lane, not a big practice in this, it seemed. And so I now don't know from the radio what I'm doing. I'm just relying on the lap. But again, there's enough for me to see. I'm at no risk of leading this race anytime soon. And so I'm just kind of following the leader and going out there. So the race goes on. Generally, I'm kind of staying in my position. I got up to I think 11th. I was ahead of Garrett at one point, but it felt like after these cautions, although we were told you go to the back of the line, people were sort of finding their way back to the position where they had left from when they went into the pits. And so I'm not that worried about it. I'm not here to win. I'm here to not die and not crash too badly. And so I go in, and then, occasionally as you go into these turns, especially 1 and 2, which were really one big turn, 3 or 4 were a little bit more separate, you'll get people that try to go in 3 wide and don't manage to maintain themselves. And at one point that happens to me, and I'm in the middle, and Richard Childress is to my right. And this guy loses his line. I don't know who it was, but it did feel like downforce standing was always present whenever I would feel a wall or another car. I don't know how that happened, because he did a lot of pit stopping and for repairs, because he was making some contact. But me and Mr. Richard Childress are letting Jesus take the wheel, and we are cruising around. Now, we had prayed for a hedge of protection around Mr. Richard Childress, me and Travis Bell, before the race, and it was okay, because as we both found ourselves spun into the wall, finding reverse and trying to get out of it, he was okay, I was okay, but everybody thought for a moment that I was going to be the one that had hit Richard Childress just before something bad happened. But we were all right. Headed back in, and both of my tires on the right side felt like they were still intact. Even though my tires were intact after the Richard Childress accident, my alignment was not. I was now 90 degrees rotated on the steering wheel to go straight, which didn't really seem to be that big of a deal. Soon after that, Mr. Matt Farah decided he would see how my bumper felt and put me into a wall for just a little bit. I had to return the favor, but a little bit more gently, I'd like to think. I really didn't make any mistakes, I didn't feel like, in driving. I overcooked into a couple times and just stayed a little bit too wide and lost a position that I could generally get back. But, I never fell off the lead lap. And if they had counted caution laps, I would have been easily in the top third because I wasn't going in for the tires like the other guys were. And I didn't have to replace my car or anything like that, which was apparently an opportunity that was available. You could just go get a new car and they'll paint your number on the side. And I was like, well, here we are. Well, then somewhere around the 60th lap, somebody hits me real hard and cooks me coming out of 4, and I hit the wall meaningfully. And it takes out both of my right tires. Put a lot of paint on the wall, I found that the next day, but I was able to get back around because the pit's in 3, and so I roll around. I was well aware at that point that the tires were an issue, but they slapped new ones on right quick. I told them I'd lost my radio. I was like, maybe you got another one? They did not have another one. They were like, you continue to be on your own in this regard. But I knew we weren't that far away from the end, so how hard can it possibly be? It can be hard. Because just a few laps after that, one of my nice new tires, Mr. Squirrel McNutt, decided to lose it to the infield, overcorrect to the outfield, and right into my front right, and just took out the front right corner of my car. Fortunately, I was able to keep rolling generally straight despite how hard the hit was and how I felt that the next day. But my right front was no longer participating, and so sparks were flying. And when I pulled into the pits, I looked up at the Jumbotron and I could see hundreds of feet of sparks that had been coming out on the replay. Everybody's cheering. They tell me, Ed, your car is on fire. We'd like you to get out. And of course, they had not practiced this. There's some amount of time that you're supposed to be able to get out of a car that's on fire based on the way the belts work, and your fire suit only survives for how many seconds, whatever. I don't know. I got out kind of fast, but I could tell there wasn't a huge fire. And so I got out. I let everybody know I am okay. They cheered like crazy. It was one of the bigger highlights, I think. It was a pretty big accident. Others were involved, but not to the same extent. Mr. Squirrel McNutt also did not make it in, and so I was a DNF on this. It was not something that could be repaired. We were close enough to the end, and so I got to sit out there and watch. It was awesome, very fun, the craziest fireworks display I've ever seen from alarmingly close to it as it was coming out of the middle of the infield. And just, the electricity of it all was unreal. So the whole experience was really, really fun and really amazing. I was pleased with myself that I had hung with everybody. I was only, I think, in my best lap, 3/4 of a second off Zach that won. And so I was hanging with them, and that was in the 60s. They were all using nitrous every lap at the end. Everybody else's best lap was in the 80s. So I couldn't have been any happier. None of the accidents that I was in were my fault, and I had a ton of fun. So I don't know if Garrett will have me back. I'd be very glad to do another one. I've already got my safety gear from Simpson ready, and I don't know what the next adventure will be or what the next track will be, but I know they were always doing something crazy down at the Freedom Factory and in the amazing world of our good friend, Cleetus McFarland.